Chapter 1, the appointment I never wanted. He didn't expect to see her. When the nurse called my name and led me into the exam room, I thought it'd be some stranger in a white coat, asking about my blood pressure. Instead, when the door swung open, there she was, Claire, my Claire, or at least the woman who used to be mine. Her hair was tied back in a neat bun, not the messy knot she wore when she'd sit on my couch with textbooks spread across her lap. A stethoscope hung around her neck like it had always belonged there. The only thing louder than my heartbeat was the sparkle of the diamond ring on her left hand. Elias, she said, her voice catching for a second before snapping back to professional calm. Wow, it's been what, years? 4, I said. My mouth was dry. 4 years. She smiled, not warmly, not coldly, just a careful, polite smile, like we'd been acquaintances instead of lovers. Small world, she said, flipping through my file. You're here for a checkup. I nodded. Didn't know you worked here. Oh, I just transferred last year, she said, glancing at me over the rim of her glasses. It's a good place. Good people. The nurse excused herself, leaving us alone. Claire tapped her pen against the clipboard. So how's life? The question sounded casual, but I knew that tone. It was fishing, testing the waters to see if I'd sunk or swum. Busy, I said. Work keeps me moving. She tilted her head, still chasing those dreams. The pause before dreams wasn't accidental. I heard the old judgment in it. The same tone she used when she told me that my startup was cute, but unrealistic, still chasing. I said. Her smile twitched, almost a smirk. Well, some things never change. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked at the engagement ring again. She noticed, of course. She always noticed everything. His name's Daniel, she said, as if I'd asked. We met in med school. He's incredible. Runs a private clinic now. Good for you, I said. She leaned back in her chair. It's funny. I used to think you'd settle down by now. Find something stable. I gave a small laugh. I'm stable enough. She arched an eyebrow. Stable is subjective. I wanted to tell her that stability wasn't everything. That passion, loyalty, and grit meant more. But instead, I just stared at the poster on the wall explaining healthy heart rates. The room was small, but the air felt heavy. Claire typed something into her tablet, and I could feel her glancing at me between keystrokes. Finally, she said, well, Elias, let's check your vitals. I stood, rolled up my sleeve, and let her take my pulse. Her fingers brushed my wrist, clinical, detached, not like the way she used to hold my hand in the dark. Your heart rate's steady, she said, almost sounding surprised. Guess I've learned to keep it that way, I said. She smiled again, but this time, I caught it, the flicker of curiosity, maybe even irritation. When the nurse returned with a form for me to sign, Claire stood. We'll schedule a follow-up next week, just to make sure everything's fine. I knew the tone too. It wasn't just medical follow-up. It was an opening for something else. Maybe she wanted to see how far I'd come or how far I hadn't died as I walked out. I could feel her eyes on my back, and for the first time in years, I felt the old fire in my chest. Chapter 2, smiles with knives behind them. The waiting room felt different the next week. Not quieter, just heavier. Like I was walking into a trap I couldn't see. I signed in at the reception desk, and the nurse led me back again. When the door opened, Claire was there. And this time, she wasn't alone. This is Daniel, she said, stepping aside so I could see the man behind her desk. Broad shoulders, expensive watch, crisp shirt that looked like it had never touched a hanger. He stood and extended his hand. Claire's told me a lot about you, he said. I shook his hand. All good things, I hope. He smiled like he already knew the answer. Some interesting stories. Claire sat at her desk, the engagement ring catching the light again. Daniel was in the area and thought he'd join us. He likes to see where I work. I sat across from them. Of course, she opened my file with a deliberate slowness. So, Elias, I was just telling Daniel about your old business venture. The one with, what was it, custom tech accessories, smart charging cases. I said. Daniel chuckled softly. Claire says it was quite the adventure. I kept my voice calm. It was. Learned a lot. Claire's smile widened. You learned the hard way, didn't you? Remember when the supplier shipped the wrong batch and you had to store boxes in your apartment? I told Daniel about that. He thought it was hilarious. Daniel leaned forward. That must have been tough. And messy. I shrugged. It was. I managed. She tapped her pen against the desk. And what about the car? You had that old sedan that broke down every other week. I remember you fixing it in the rain one night. Daniel's grin grew. That's dedication. It's survival. I said. Claire laughed lightly. You were always resourceful, even when things didn't exactly work out. I met her. Gaze. That's one way to put it. The nurse entered to take my blood pressure, wrapping the cuff around my arm. I could feel both of them watching me. Claire kept talking. Daniel's just closed on a new investment. We were saying how important stability is, especially in careers. You agree, right, Elias? I looked at Daniel. Depends on what you're building. Some things worth building take time. Daniel smiled politely, but his eyes flicked to Claire. She leaned back in her chair. True. But some people can't wait forever for something to succeed. That's true, I said, my voice steady. Some people walk away before it does. Her smile froze for half a second before she glanced back at my file. Your blood pressure's normal, she said to the nurse. That's good. Let's just do a quick exam. Daniel stayed seated in the corner, silent now. She checked my chest with a stethoscope, her tone clinical again. Breathe in. Breathe out. I did as she asked, watching her expression. She didn't meet my eyes. When it was over, she handed the file back to the nurse. We'll need another follow-up in 2 weeks. Daniel stood and offered his hand. Again, good seeing you. I shook it. Likewise. As I left the room, I didn't look back, but I could feel Claire's smile. Thin, tight, and nothing like victory. Chapter 3. Flashbacks. I never asked. Fourth walk home felt longer than usual. My mind wasn't in the present. It was dragging me backward, forcing me into memories I tried to lock away. I dropped my bag on the couch and sat in the dark. For a moment before pulling out my phone, my thumb hovered over old photos I swore I deleted. There she was, laughing in my kitchen, wearing my hoodie. I could almost smell the coffee we used to make together. I called Ethan. He picked up. On the second ring. You sound like you just saw a ghost. Close. I said. Claire's my doctor now. He whistled. That's bad luck. Bad enough. I said. She brought her fiancé into the appointment. Why? To watch her perform. He laughed. But it wasn't amused. Same Claire. Then, she always needed an audience. I leaned back. She mocked the business, the car, every failure she could name. Sounds like she's trying to remind you of the version of yourself she left. She doesn't know that version doesn't exist anymore. Ethan's tone shifted. So what are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not letting her write my story for him. Silence hung for a moment before he said, remember the winter you lived in your car? You still showed up for work every morning like nothing was wrong. That's the guy she's trying to erase. Don't let her. I ended the call and sat with that thought. The truth was, she had been there for some of my worst moments, but she'd also been the one to walk away when things were at their hardest. My mind dragged me to the night she left. We were in the kitchen. She was pacing, arms crossed. I can't keep living like this, Elias. You're chasing something that might never happen. It will happen, I said. I just need more time. She shook her head. Time isn't going to put food on the table or a roof over our heads. I've been offered a place to stay with someone who can actually give me a future. I'd felt the words before she even said them. Daniel, she didn't answer, but her silence was enough. She walked out with her suitcase, not even turning back when I called her name. Now, sitting in my apartment years later, I realized the anger I thought had burned out was still smoldering. I opened my laptop and started pulling up old files. Proof of the work I'd done since then. Contracts, bank statements, photos from conferences where my company's logo was on the stage. If she wanted to measure me by the man I was when she left, she was going to be disappointed. Chapter for a trap in a white coat. Weeks later, I walked into the clinic knowing exactly how I play this. No raised voice, no obvious pushback, just questions she wouldn't see coming until it was too late. Claire greeted me with that professional smile again, right on time. Elias, coming. I sat down. How's Daniel? She blinked. He's fine. Busy as ever. Why do you ask? Just curious. I said. You mentioned he runs a clinic. Must be rewarding, right? Her shoulders relaxed. It is. We help a lot of people. We're stable, secure. I nodded slowly. And you've always valued stability, even back when we were together. She studied me for a moment. It's important to know what you want. I knew what I wanted. I kept my tone even. Did you ever think about what you might have lost by choosing that? She tilted her head. What exactly do you mean? The nurse came in to take my vitals. I let the silence hang until she left again. You left because you said you couldn't wait for me to succeed. I said, do you still think success is only measured in money and titles? She smirked. That's a loaded question. It's a fair one. I said, especially for a doctor. You measure lives in more than numbers, don't you? Her pen stopped, moving. What's your point? Elias, my point is, I said slowly, if you define someone's worth only by what they have right now, you might miss who they're becoming. She shifted in her seat. That's a nice speech, but life isn't a charity case. I smiled faintly. Neither is loyalty. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Are we still talking about your checkup? Sure. I said, you're checking my health. I'm checking your perspective. Seems fair. Daniel wasn't in the room this time, and I could see her weighing whether to end the conversation. She didn't. Maybe she thought she could still win whatever game she thought I was playing. She changed the subject. Let's get to your follow-up results. I listened as she explained numbers and charts, but I could tell her mind wasn't on them. She was still replaying my questions. When she was done, I leaned back. Claire, can I ask you something purely personal? Her guard went up instantly. Depends on what it is. When you tell Daniel stories about me, do you tell him the whole story or just the parts that make you look good? Her eyes flickered. I don't tell stories about you. That's interesting, I said, because some of the things he knew, I never told him. She straightened her papers. Disappointment's over. I stood, smiling politely. See you next time, doctor. As I walked out, I could feel it, the smallest shift. The first crack in her control. Chapter 5. The boiling point when I walked in for the next appointment, Daniel was already there, sitting in the corner of her office like he belonged behind the desk. Elias, he said, standing to shake my hand. Good to see you again. I returned the handshake. Same here. Claire gestured toward the chair opposite her. Let's get started. Daniel just happened to stop by. Coincidence, Daniel said with a grin. I sat, leaning back. Of course. She opened my file. So, how's work these days? Still chasing the same projects. Still building. I said. Daniel glanced at her. Claire told me you used to work 20-hour days and still couldn't keep the lights on. That true? I met his gaze. I worked 20-hour days because I believed in what I was building. And yes, sometimes the lights went out. That's how you learn to appreciate them when they stay on. Claire laughed softly. Remember the winter you slept in your car? I told Daniel about that. He thought it was what was the word you used. Daniel intense. He said, though his grin was starting to fade. I smiled faintly. It was survival. You'd be surprised what you can live through when quitting isn't an option. Daniel shifted in his chair. Claire leaned forward. But sometimes knowing when to quit is the smarter choice. Sometimes, I said, holding her eyes. Other times it's the excuse people use when they don't have the patience to see something through. The air in the room tightened. Daniel glanced between us. Seems like you'd had history. Claire's voice was quick. Ancient history. I nodded. True. But history has a way of showing you who people really are. Claire tapped her pen against the desk. Let's keep this professional. I am being professional, I said, calmly. You're the one bringing up the past in front of your fiancé. Daniel sat up straighter. Wait, so some of these stories weren't just friendly memories? Claire's lips tightened. They were just examples. Examples, I repeated. Of what exactly? Of how you left when things got hard. Her pen froze mid-tap. Daniel looked at her. Is that true? She didn't answer right away. And in that pause, I saw the first real break in her confidence. I leaned forward slightly. You know, Claire, I've had a lot of failures. But at least I didn't trade loyalty for convenience. Daniel's eyes were locked on her now. She shifted in her chair, papers rustling under her hands. This appointment is over, she said. Her voice clipped. I stood, keeping my tone light. No problem. We can always pick this up next time. Daniel didn't move as I left, but I caught his expression, curiosity mixed with something colder. Chapter 6. Turning the knife. Next appointment felt different before I even walked in. Daniel was already there again, sitting beside her desk, not in the corner this time. His eyes followed me all the way to the chair. Elias, he said, evenly. Daniel, I replied. Claire forced a smile. Let's get this over with quickly. I have other patients. I leaned back. Sure. But before we start, I want to tell you both something. Call it context. Her brow furrowed. This is a medical appointment, not story time. It's relevant, I said. Do you remember the semester your tuition was due and you didn't have enough? Her expression tightened. That was a long time ago. I kept my gaze on her. I worked double shifts for 3 months straight. I skipped meals, barely slept. I even sold my guitar to make sure you could stay in school. Daniel turned to her. Is that true? She looked down at her papers. It was complicated. It wasn't complicated, I said. It was loyalty. I defended you when your family said you'd never make it through med school. I kept going. When everyone told me to let you figure it out alone, and when I was the one who needed someone to believe in me, you were gone. Daniel's jaw tightened. Claire. She looked at him. That was years ago. I let the silence stretch. Funny thing about yours, they don't erase the truth. They just give you more time to hide from it. Her smile was gone now. The engagement ring on her hand looked heavier than before. Daniel glanced at her again. Why haven't I heard any of this before? She didn't answer. I stood slowly. You wanted me to sit here and be the guy you left behind. But I'm not him anymore. And you can't rewrite the past to make yourself look better. Claire's voice was low. We're done here. Agreed, I said. I walked out, leaving the door open behind me. The quiet that followed was heavier than anything she'd thrown at me. Chapter 7. The shatter point. The time I walked into the clinic again. I knew exactly what I was going to say. Daniel was there, sitting across from Claire, his posture rigid. He didn't stand when I came in. Elias, Claire said without looking up from her desk. Let's make this quick. I sat down and folded my hands. Sure. But I think we should clear the air first. Her eyes narrowed. About what? I looked at Daniel. Has she told you why we broke up? He hesitated. She said you had different priorities. I nodded slowly. That's one way to put it. The truth is, I was building something, working every day toward it. She told me she couldn't wait for me to succeed. She said she needed someone who could give her a comfortable life now. Daniel's gaze shifted to Claire. Is that true? She straightened her papers. I was young. I made choices I thought were best for me. That's not the whole story, I said. She didn't just walk away. She left for someone else. You. Daniel froze. What? I kept my tone steady. We were still together when you met. She told me she was going to visit her parents for a weekend. She stayed with you instead. Claire's face flushed. That is not how it happened. Daniel leaned forward. So you're saying you didn't know him when we started seeing each other? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I turned to Daniel. I don't care about the past between you two, but I'm not going to sit here while she paints me as some failure for your entertainment. I lived through the hardest years of my life without quitting. She left because it was easier. The silence in the room was thick. Daniel's jaw was tight. Claire stared at her desk like the numbers on the page could save her. You could have just said you moved on, I said. Instead, you turned my struggles into jokes. Daniel looked at me, then at her. Claire, we need to talk. Her voice was low. Not here. I stood, pushing the chair back slowly. Good idea. Have that talk. Just make sure you tell the whole story. I walked to the door without another word. Daniel didn't stop me. Claire didn't look up. Chapter 8. Walking out strong. Gary didn't rush back to the clinic for my next appointment. Part of me wondered if they'd even schedule it after the last time. But when the call came, I said yes. I wanted the final word, not because I needed to win, but because I needed to end it on my terms. When I walked in, the receptionist gave me a look I couldn't quite read. The nurse led me to Claire's office, and for the first time, Daniel wasn't there. She was alone. Elias, she said quietly. Sit down. I sat, my posture relaxed. How's Daniel? She avoided my eyes. He's busy. I nodded. Busy or avoiding this room, she sighed. You think you've made your point, don't you? I didn't come here to make a point. I said, I came here to stop letting you define me. Her gaze lifted. You think I've been defining you? You have, I said. Every time you turn my lowest moments into a story. Every time you use my past to make yourself look better. You thought I'd sit here and take it. She leaned back in her chair. You hurt me too, Elias. I kept my voice even, not by leaving you hungry, not by abandoning you in the middle of a storm. If I hurt you, it was because I didn't give you the comfort you wanted fast enough. That comfort was survival for me, she said. You don't understand what it's like to feel like you're drowning in someone else's chaos. I leaned forward, and you don't understand what it's like to have someone walk away when you're trying to keep both of you afloat. The air between us was tense, but there was no heat in my voice. Just truth. You've changed, she said finally. I had to, I replied. People who get left behind either stay on the floor or get up stronger. She crossed her arms. So what now? You want me to apologize? I shook my head. No, I don't need that from you. I just needed you to know I'm not the man you left. You can't use my past as a punchline anymore. Her lips pressed together, but she didn't argue. I hope you're happy, Claire, I said, standing, truly. But happiness built on rewriting the truth never lasts. I walked to the door. My hand was on the handle when she said, Elias. I turned slightly. I did love you, she said. Once. I gave a small nod. And I loved you. Once. The door clicked shut behind me. Out in the hall. The air felt lighter than it had in weeks. I signed the discharge papers at the front desk, thanked the nurse, and stepped out into the sunlight. On the sidewalk, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. This is Daniel. Can we talk sometime? I need to hear the rest of your side. I stared at it for a moment before typing back. There's nothing more you need to hear. Just take a good look at the person next to you and decide if that's who you want to be standing within 10 years. I hit send and slipped the phone into my pocket. As I walked away, I realized something. Revenge wasn't about destroying someone. It wasn't about making them feel what you felt. It was about refusing to let them take any more from you. Claire could keep her stories. She could keep the ring, the job, the life she chose. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. And for the first time in 4 years, the man she tried to define was gone. The man walking away was mine alone.